Something you said really stuck with me, and I want to just unpack it further. You said when we shared the platform, for those who
Yeah.
don't know, for those who are listening, Omran is a barrister, defense barrister. And for our American listeners, he is what you would call a defense attorney. But
Yeah.
Omran, you said that sometimes when particularly young black men go to court and they wear do-rag, it can be a problem for them.
Yes.
Why is that the case? Why are these people beefing the do-rag? What's wrong with them?
Well, funny thing about the durag, I mean, I actually mistook the durag for something else, which shows how I personally uneducated I am. But yeah, indeed, right? But it's because the people who sit in judgment, the funny thing about criminal courts in particular is that it's supposed to be judgment of your peers, but it's never that, right? It is
Oh,
never the
really?
case that it is your peers judging you, right? It will never
Okay.
be a jury of 12 young black males from disadvantaged backgrounds who will be sitting in judgment of a young black male from a disadvantaged background. It will be
Mm-hmm.
people without criminal records because it's necessary in order for you to sit on a jury for you to be of good character.
Yes.
People without criminal records, people who can afford to be on jury service, who can take the time out.
Exactly. What?
Exactly. And in the magistrates' court, where the majority of criminal cases take place, it's usually old white men who, because as a magistrate you volunteer, so you're not paid to sit as a magistrate.
Okay.
If you're a judge, yes, you're paid, but if you're a magistrate, you're not. You volunteer, and obviously you can only volunteer so much of your time if you've got something going on in the background that means you don't have to work full time.
Yes.
So again, it's
But
never.
as a magistrate, you're talking someone who judges on the cases.
Yes, so a magistrate and the only difference between a magistrate and a judge in the magistrate's court is that the judge is legally trained, so he doesn't need someone who is legally trained to help them about the law. Whereas a magistrate
Yes.
isn't, doesn't have the legal background, doesn't have the legal education, so they have what are called legal advisors. But the problem is they see, they read the news and they read the stereotypes about black people, about young black males, and when they see someone wearing the clothes that they've read about their whole lives and these fittings sort of the stereotype that they've heard about their whole life, even if that person has a good case, is of good character, the way that they dress, the way that they act, if it fits the stereotype, then they will come down more harshly on them just
Wow.
because they fit that stereotype.
Wow. That is very telling. Isn't that then a fundamental flaw within the system then? That is a
Yeah,
broken system.
yeah, definitely. And actually, I've represented several, black people in my career, and I remember this one case of this young black woman who was
Hmm.
horribly treated by its City of London police. City of London police has a reputation for being quite racist,
That's
and
different to the Met, isn't it?
yes, so City of London police covers
Isn't so-
base.
isn't City of London even like a private corporation?
Almost, yeah. So it covers a very small part of London.
Okay.
It covers the city and a bit
Yeah.
of sort of Holborn area, but it doesn't go anywhere beyond that. They are extremely well funded as far as police forces go, and they are very aggressive police officers.
Wow.
And I represented this young woman she failed to stop for police. They had signaled, they were behind her, they checked her car, they thought she was driving without insurance, so they turned on the lights. She thought it was because they needed to speed by, so she didn't stop
Okay.
for them. She just stopped naturally at a red light. And this is a woman who's
Yeah.
a victim of domestic violence. She's got all sorts of health issues. So she stops at the red light. This big police car then stops right next to her, and a couple of burly, big. These are big guys. They come out of the
Yeah.
car. One of them, credit where credit is due, is very calm with her, reasons with her, etc. But one of them, he's a small guy, very aggressive, very almost violent, right? And
Wow.
she stopped. She's asked to turn the car off. She does that, and she pleads with them. She says, "I want to speak to a female officer. I don't feel comfortable." And they just ignore her. They're saying, "Just come out of the car." Ultimately, one officer goes around to the passenger side, breaks the window, and they
What the
drag her
hell?
out of the car. They drag her out of the
What the
car.
hell?
Yeah, it's very, very aggressive,
For
very
failing
violent.
to stop. Just I'm
Yeah,
I'm so confused. Like there's no prior like weapon or anything
no,
like that. It's
no,
literally just failure to stop.
nothing at all. Yeah, failure to stop for
And
police.
this is a
It,
black woman, isn't it?
Yeah, she's a black woman in circumstances where because there was body worn footage in circumstances where there two lanes, the opposing lane there's a bus coming and the bus flashes its
Yes.
lights, so it's very clear to the
Yes.
bus that the police car, seems like it wants to go somewhere else because it's got its blue lights
Hmm.
on, right? So it's not immediately obvious to even the bus that this police car is telling this woman to stop by turning on its lights.
Yeah.
So it's a very understandable position that she is in. So they drag her out
Okay.
of the car. They then pin her to a wall. And this one extremely aggressive police officer, they do in the end, a female police officer comes to the scene, but I think that's just by chance because looking at the evidence, no one had made an effort to actually contact a female police officer. Just that one turns up. She manages to calm her down, and this one guy is just extremely aggressive, waving I think it's a breathalyzer or a drug or a cannabis drug test in front of her,
Yeah.
just wagging it in her face. And she's crying. She's very distraught. You can tell. And he's badgering her, shouting at her, and she, in frustration and anger, just makes a face at him. And he says on the body worn, he said, "Don't you spit at me? Don't you spit at me?" She didn't spit on anyone. She hasn't spat on anyone. Visible on the body worn. And when he says that, his two colleagues, who are quite tall, quite big, just pin her to the wall quite aggressively and then slam her to the floor.
I'm absolutely like that's
And
actually made me so upset and so angry.
yeah, yeah, and well, it made her upset and angry as well. And
Of
actually,
course, of course. I mean,
uh,
I'm not. I wasn't even
well,
there. This is
well, yeah,
horrible.
it's no surprise. And actually, in law, I mean, we have, the solicitor and I had advised her that in law she didn't have a defense, but she was so angry about it all that she wanted these officers to be brought to court to answer for what they had done to her.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough, right? I mean, it's not the first time that I've had, people in criminal cases tell me, "Look, I've been treated so unfairly by the police," and you have to tell them, "Well, look, if that's how you feel, it's the criminal process isn't the way for you to address that issue." But some
Hmm.
people want the police to be on the witness stand, to be cross-examined by barristers, by solicitors, to be asked tough questions.
Yes.
But the point of this story is that the judge in her case was a black woman.
Hmm.
She saw all of this footage. Ultimately, the client, on my advice, changed her plea to a guilty one halfway through the
Okay.
trial. But the judge gave her what's called a conditional discharge, and in terms of the sentences, it's about the second lowest you can get. This is a
Okay.
woman who had previous convictions, and I'm convinced that because it is because she understood that woman's suffering as a black woman, right? I'm
Wow.
I'm convinced that if it was anyone else on that bench, the sentence she would have gotten would be very different. She would not have gotten, because I mean, there's a thing called credit for guilty plea. So in the criminal process, if you plead guilty the first time you're brought to court, then you get a reduction in your sentence. You get a lesser sentence. It's to incentivize people to plead guilty, avoid wasting time if they have no chance in hell. So to get a conditional discharge halfway through a trial, the only reason she would have done that is because she had extreme sympathy for what she had seen on the
Wow.
body worn footage. And that's why representation matters, because it's shared experiences, it's understanding that there are some actions by law enforcement that are born out of
I mean,
racial prejudice.
representation matters is what we'd think, isn't it? But then we have the pretty patels, don't we?
Yeah, of course. But
We would
there are
hope it
people in
matters.
there are people in that category, for sure.
I mean, it can be of, I guess it can be of some benefit, I guess. But this thing of like, you have to be I mean, you have to be judged by your peers is almost a fallacy then. Is that the case? It doesn't really take place.
Yeah, no, it's definitely the case that people of ethnic minority backgrounds are overrepresented on the defendant side of the criminal justice system and underrepresented in where the decisions are actually made.
What do you put that down to? Like the people who sit in jury and people who sit in magistrates. I mean, you mentioned before people have to have time. They're from maybe
Yeah,
a specific kind of socioeconomic background. But do you feel it has that much of an impact? I mean, you mentioned the case of the judge. Do you have any other cases? I mean, you don't have to go into detail, but is that like a trend you've noticed within the justice system?
I mean, with juries, it's less stark because juries are picked out at random from the local area. So, but again, like I said, there is a requirement that you don't commit, that you have a clean record. And the
Yes.
reality is that juries, by and large, do reflect the sort of social and economic differences in the country because you are less likely to have a criminal record if you come from an under-policed community. So the problem is that some communities are vastly over-policed, right? And
Yeah.
that is the reason why they get a criminal record. You're far less likely, you're equally likely to have a joint on you if you live in Chelsea or if you live in a council estate.
I think you're being very generous when you say
Indeed,
joint. It's like
indeed.
it's like
Well, yeah,
it's like a
exactly.
color. It's like when
Yeah,
a color speaks of if you were to police Glastonbury Festival the same way you police the hood, you will
yeah.
find every type of
Way more
class A
drugs.
drug there.
Way more drugs. Well,
Let's be
exactly,
honest.
right? But the point is, you're less likely to have a criminal record if you live in Chelsea than if you live in a council estate, and that means
Hmm.
you're more likely to sit on a jury because of that, because you live in Chelsea, than because you live in a council estate. So it's in that way, it sort of reflects the existing differences, social economic differences within society.
But that is a deeply flawed system. Then how do we reform this system? I don't want to just speak on like kind of this idealistic term of or this idealistic thinking of what's the vision for the future. When you hear things like defund the police, and then people even say abolish the police, we can speak about those things. What's your take on things like defunding the police? And again, for our listeners, I hate people. I don't, hate is a very strong word. People have this thing of like this knee jerk reaction. What do you mean by defund the police? Wait, wait. Take a breather, guys. Take a breather, guys. All we're saying is the police roles or the roles that have been designated to police officers are many.
Mhm.
Many of those roles do not have to be done by the police, and many of times we can taking funding away from the police can result in the reallocation of funding, whereas like where it's going to be early
Yeah,
intervention programs and
yeah.
things like this. So yeah, just to guess what. Sorry, I have to
Well,
give that background for
I
listeners. What do you think of fund the police?
I agree with that, and actually, I mean, it's if you listen actually to some, and this might be controversial to your listeners, but there are some police voices who they don't agree with those particular terms, defund the police, but they agree with the
Hmm.
sentiment, right? They also
Okay.
agree that actually we criminalize way too many things. There are better ways of dealing with certain things.
Hmm.
For example, drug possession and drug
Yeah.
addiction,
Exactly.
because actually consuming most of these drugs isn't a criminal offense; it's possessing them.
Yeah.
And
True.
the Met Police, in particular, I mean, the Met Police is the one that will, because it's the largest police force in the UK.
Yeah.
The second largest is Greater Manchester Police. But the voices in the Met Police, the reason they don't want to decriminalize cannabis is because it allows them to conduct stop and searches. It's the
Look at that.
ground. It's
I think that's
the.
corrupt.
It is in a way because the way they view drug policing is a gateway. It's their gateway drug actually into policing violence and policing serious violence. That's how they
Hmm.
see it. And they say that if you take away our ability to stop people because we think they have drugs, then it'll be harder for us to stop people and arrest people for violent offenses, which is bullshit because, sorry, it's rubbish because they,
No, 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 no. I love it. Be open. Don't worry. This is open, be as open as you want.
thank you. Because they already have powers to stop and search people if they think that those people are carrying weapons, or if they think
Exactly.
people are carrying stolen goods. They have those powers. But it's obviously a lot easier to suspect people of carrying drugs because they just say you smell of cannabis, and
Yeah. How many
it's
times have you heard that?
well, every time. It's in every police. Every time they stop a car, it's because it smells of cannabis. Even if
Oh
the
wow.
windows are rolled down, the car they're in their car. The car is two cars ahead of them. They happen to drive past it, and magically they can smell cannabis. I mean, it's always rubbish. Everyone knows it's rubbish. I think even the officers know it's rubbish. But the reason why they say smell of cannabis is because you can't bring a smell to court. You can't prove
Yes.
a smell. It's there, it then goes away. You can't also disprove a smell. So it's
Yeah.
impossible to fight the I smelled cannabis ground of stopping them. But I mean, I fully agree with the notion that the police should be given far fewer roles. And I mean, I think to in some fairness to them, the reason, at least in the UK, why they have an oversized role is also because there has been defunding of other public services. And
Hmm.
so other public services are swamped, don't know how to deal with certain things. If you think like
Yeah.
mental health, for example, the police answer mental health calls. They shouldn't be doing that. They're not trained to do that. And people who are going through mental health episodes can sometimes be violent or aggressive or abusive. And the problem is the police view that from a criminal justice lens rather than
Mm,
a mental health or a health perspective. So that's a very clear example. The other example I think is youth justice,
yes.
especially the Met. There is there is in law there are very clear distinctions between people who are involved in criminal offenses before they are 18 and after they are 18. There are very strict rules that favor rehabilitation, that move them away from prosecution when they are under 18. But I've found that actually, and it's not just a police problem, it's a prosecutor problem as well, that in
Okay.
reality, in practice, that difference isn't made. People who
Okay.
are under 18 are treated for all purposes as if they were over 18 and criminalized, and it's not viewed as, because when you get a criminal record, it's a serious thing that follows you your whole life. It can change
Yeah.
lives depending on what you've done, what you're sentenced to, and it's just not viewed in that way by the police or by the prosecution.
So it really seems like it's like a system almost set to fail, isn't it? Because I've always said that if you look at people like Akala, who does amazing work, and I mentioned on this podcast before with previous
Mm,
episodes, they spoke about early intervention. They spoke about how there's a link between getting excluded from school and then going
yeah,
to school to prison pipeline, all these things. But it's
yeah,
almost like the government and system does not even care to listen to this thing. It's far easier to put people in prison when
yeah,
it's quite strange because it costs far more to send people to prison a year than send them to even like a low level private school. Again,
yeah.
that's the approach that they take. So, is there any hope for this system? Can it even be reformed? What do you think?
I think it can. I think it depends on who's in power. I don't think there is a hope in hell based on who is currently in power, because
Of course.
Boris Johnson, Priti Patel, and their ilk.
Oh,
I mean,
practically racist anyway.
yes, I mean, what they all they do is come up with these ridiculous notions for criminal justice that aren't going to improve the
Of
situation.
course. I mean, the thing is, Boris Johnson himself said that when I see a group of black boys, I feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah,
If that's at the helm of, if
yes,
that's at the
exactly.
steering the ship, what do you think?
Well, yeah. What do you
How it
expect?
reflects exactly what do you expect? But I do want to ask you a personal question. Why did you go into defense?
Mostly personal experience. So I mean, as you can tell, I don't have a British accent. I
I
wasn't,
was gonna ask you,
yeah,
where's your accent
I wasn't,
from?
so,
And have you taken elocution lessons?
no, I haven't. I haven't taken elocution lessons. But, so my mother's Algerian, my dad's Pakistani. I was born in France and I was raised in France.
Okay,
And I went to an international school there. But for a long time, I lived in what was basically the equivalent of council estates in France.
okay,
And I can't remember who I was saying this to, but actually the Algerian community in particular in France, the Algerian and Moroccans, and the black community in France, they are policed to the same level as black people in the UK. So,
okay.
of course, our skin colors are different, but our experiences with the police. I mean, I've had run-ins with the police when
Oh
I was
wow.
living in France, and it's those sort of run-ins that gave me the drive to become a criminal defense lawyer. I know Hala has her own views about changing the system from the inside. I admire those views, but
Comment on that position.
I've always felt that, and it is a credit to her, the task that she is undertaking, and she is undertaking it with open eyes, I think. But I have always
Yeah.
taken the view that it is extremely difficult to move that beast from the inside, and
Okay.
that actually these systems in Western countries are, they give power to people like defense lawyers. There is a certain amount
Okay.
that you can do with minimal resources. There is the possibility of putting a brake on the system and the sort of grind of the system. And that's why I have the role, or I take the role that I do.
Hmm.
And I agree with the idea that there does need to be people within the system changing the system within the inside. It's just not something I want to do. I think
Okay.
it's admirable that Howard is doing it. It's just not my cup of tea, as it were.
No,
Um,
I think that's very fair. That's very
yeah.
fair. Many of my well, I hope many of my listeners will not, but I'm gonna ask the same question I asked to Howard. I'm gonna ask you. If I ever get in trouble with the law, me as a young black man, where do I want to be tried?
What offense have you committed?
Ooh, let's play the offense game. This is fun. This is fun. Possession of marijuana. Where do I want to be tried?
Oh, I mean, I just accept a caution for possession of marijuana. If you've never done anything else, you'll just get a caution.
Okay.
You want something a bit more meaty.
Okay, hypothetically, totally
Yeah,
hypothetically,
yeah.
totally hypothetically, getting into a fight where you knock out a racist on the street.
Okay. And your defense is you're acting in self-defense.
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Where do you want to be tried?
My defense is self-defense here.
Yeah, yeah.
Even if I even
He started it.
hypothetically,
He
I
started.
started it. Okay,
He's
good.
throwing a punch, and you ducked, and then you hit him back, and he fell on the floor.
Okay, okay, okay.
So in that situation, I mean, you definitely want to be tried in front of a jury. That's for sure. Where you would want it to happen, and Snaresbrook is pretty good. So you'd want it to happen in East London.
East London. Okay.
Snaresbrook is notorious for acquitting defendants, and again, that goes back to reflecting the sort of culture, the socioeconomic and cultural makeup of the local area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
I think your
Snaresbrook,
food's ready. Yeah.
yeah, I'm just turning it off. Um,
It's all right. I love to keep it as natural as possible. Happens, man. People eat food. People are. It's
yeah,
9:25 as we're recording this right now, so it's dinner time, guys.
yeah.
But
But
Snare Brooks, carry on.
Snaresbrook, so, it's East London. It's at the moment, and a few years before, it's not yet fully gentrified and full of sort of avocado toast
Yeah, I mean,
eating
I grew up in
liberals.
Leytonstone.
Well,
I grew up in
exactly.
Leytonstone.
It's
Yeah,
it's a
so it's
very
very
ethnically
nearby.
and culturally diverse area, and it reflects on the juries. I mean, I just finished trial, right? A trial is supposed to be in St Albans, was moved to Huntingdon, which is just before Peterborough, and there's
Okay.
one person of color on that jury.
And was the defendant a person of color?
Yeah, two
Okay.
defendants. My client was Lebanese. The
Okay.
co-defendant was Somali, and we were both found
Okay.
guilty. I was found guilty of the more serious offense, and my co-defendant was found guilty of a lesser offense. But we were both found guilty.
Okay. If I overturn a statue, so that's damage to public property, isn't it?
Yeah,
Or where do I want to be tried,
criminal damage.
yes, not tried, or what do I want to do in that situation? I feel bad. I feel like I need to pay you after this, isn't
No,
it?
you haven't. It's hypothetical advice. It's not real advice, so it's
Exactly.
fine.
Oh yeah, exactly.
You would. Is this in the course of a protest? Is this like
Yes.
it's an act of protest that you've overturned
Yes.
the statue,
Yes.
right? It's the statue of a racist. It's like Winston Churchill.
Yes. It's Colston's cousin or something, or
Oh right.
Colston's brother.
Okay. Um, Again, you would want to be tried in front of a jury because you would want to make these points about racism, etc. That just will
Okay.
fall on deaf ears on either a bench of magistrates or a district judge. So you'll want to be tried in front of a jury.
Okay. Cool. So
Probably
basically, first is that the bottom line? Person of color, you want to be tried in front of a jury. Is that
you
like the
have a
bottom
better
line
shot.
then?
Yeah, you always have a better shot as a person of color. It's just statistics, right? As people of
Yeah.
color, the rates of acquittal of people of color is greater with juries than it is in the magistrates court.
Okay. So that's the stats. That's the kind of breakdown,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
breakdown behind it. I know you want to get to your food, so I'm gonna kind of ask you just one last question, if that's possible.
Sure.
What's like the most? I don't know if it's the right word of like an interesting case that if you can share, or something that's something that's very memorable. I don't want to sound very giddy in the background. It might be a terrible case, but I mean, oh no, you know what? Even before we get there, I got two questions because people always
Yeah,
ask this. Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know if your criminal defense. Do you have issues with morality, like defending like murderers and rapists and
No, I
pedophiles, things
had
like
so
this?
the one issue of morality I did have was someone defending someone who it was an issue of morality, I stress, not an issue of ethics, because ethically there was nothing wrong. But I
Okay.
represented someone who called this young woman a packy.
Oh, okay.
Which is obviously, I mean, it's odd, right?
Of course,
But
personal.
well, yes, exactly. But it's yeah. I mean, morally, it wasn't. I didn't feel great about it because I had to do my job and I had to cross-examine this young woman about the fact that I had to cross-examine her on the basis that when she was saying she's going to pull your scarf, she's not actually attacking your religion. She's just saying that she's pulling the piece of clothing that you're wearing,
Oh my
which is obvious
god.
nonsense. But
Oh my
I have a job to
god.
do. Yeah.
How do you do it?
I have a
How do
job
you
to
sleep
do.
at night?
I have a job to. Well, I think there's a difference between ethics and moral. There was no
Of course.
difficulty at all ethically in me doing it. It is the role I play in the system, right? But
Yeah.
obviously it does gnaw at you morally. But I have to put that aside because ethically, that case came to me. I have a duty to do my best for that client. They're being charged with a criminal offense, and I have to represent them. But obviously, we are human
Yeah.
as lawyers. Everyone is human. It's ridiculous to suggest that it doesn't affect me at all. Of course, it does. It's just that you have to park it, right?
Yeah.
While you are working for that client, you have a professional responsibility for them, and you have to fulfill it. But of course, these things do have an effect morally.
Okay. Have you ever like had like a major case like that, like a murder trial or
No, I'm too
something like that?
junior for that. No, inshallah, that will
Oh,
come.
okay, okay.
That will come later
I,
on. But
I don't know. I don't know if you say inshallah. I don't know if you say inshallah to those kind of things,
well,
but
I say inshallah, the trial will come. But
okay,
obviously,
okay,
I
okay.
don't
Not
want I don't want anyone to be killed, obviously. But
of course. And finally, just share like a memorable case if you don't mind. I think our views, our
memorable. I mean,
listeners will
what
find it.
the one case? I don't know if I shared this on the panel, but I had this young black man who was charged with assault occasioning actual bodily harm. He's
Mhm.
someone who has serious mental health problems, and he came up to someone in the middle of the road and just hit them in the nose. And he was arrested by the police almost, within, I think it was 10 minutes or something like that.
Oh
But there was
wow. Okay.
body worn footage again of him being very seriously manhandled by police officers. He was handcuffed with his hands to his back. He was pinned against a wall by two officers. They then, for some reason, he you can hear him say on the body worn, just let me sit down, let me sit down. And for
Yeah.
some reason, they just tackle him to the floor. And you can see the body worn is kind of shaky, but you can see and hear one of the officers knee him in the back twice for no
Wow.
reason whatsoever, for absolutely no reason. And he was again one of the those kinds who was, who wanted a trial because he was pissed off with the police.
Yeah.
Understandable. Again, not the right, if you have an issue with the police, they've manhandled you, they've wrongfully arrested you, they can be held liable in courts different than the criminal courts. You have a civil claim. But
How common is that though?
it's not common, and the reason it's not common is because of costs, because it's risky to take on
Oh.
it's financially risky to take on a claim
Okay.
against the police, because if you lose, you then have to pay their costs of defending the claim.
Yeah.
A lot of
Oh wow.
people are they're just not wealthy enough to take on the risk. And some cases, especially the borderline cases where court could go either way and it's sort of difficult to predict, then it'd be really difficult to get funding and to protect yourself from the
Of
police
course.
ruining you financially. But this, just to get back to this case, what's
Yes.
striking is I played that body worn footage in court because my point was he was very calm when faced with this assault by the police. So
Yes.
how could he have committed this offense? Didn't work.
Yeah.
But the point was, I played this footage, and I didn't even have to ask many questions of the officer because the judge laid into the officer for about 15 minutes. Is
Oh
how dare you
wow.
treat? And that was really refreshing. This was she's a young female. She's a white judge, young female
Okay.
judge, and it was really refreshing because she's part of a sort of new generation who are sort of changing the tide, who is extremely fair, who doesn't display the usual biases that you would see in other tribunals.
Yes.
And it was just extremely refreshing because I barely asked any question of the officer because the judge just went straight into it
Really?
and gave him
Laid into it.
gave him a really really hard time.
Wow.
And she actually made a finding. She didn't have to, but she made a finding that they used unlawful force against him. It was completely
Oh
unrelated to the
wow.
case that she was trying, but she said in her, when she gave her conclusion, she found him guilty in the end, but it's a separate
Yeah.
matter. But she said, "I find that the police have used unlawful force against this person." And that was just it was
Wow.
just refreshing because that in part, is in a way is what he wanted, right? Is for
Yeah.
someone to recognize that actually they've seriously abused him.
So okay, so there is kind of hope then. New
Yeah,
generation.
it's
Hopefully,
not all
new
doom and
judges.
gloom. There
It's
is
not all
definitely,
doom and gloom.
yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I've loved talking to you, man. You are a
Likewise.
force for good, man, and keep up, man.
Thank
All
you.
right, take care. Until next time.
Thank you very much.
Guys, you're listening to the Malcolm Effect. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, be that whether it's on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube. Peace out.